Hey, college sports fans. Here we are coming out of another bye week with the Clemson Tigers. We are going to look at the offense this time around. We looked at the defense going into the bye week. Uh, Tigers have some work to do to face Duke. They lost to Duke the last time they played. It was week one. You could kind of write off some of the mistakes back then. We're going to look at that offensive side of the ball, kind of see where everything stands, and maybe get into a few other side topics as well. Who knows? I'm Bill Zimmerman. This is the Reign Supreme Alway podcast, season 4.
I'm Daniel Shirley. Bill, I don't know where to go with stuff right now.
Neither does the offense.
Well, that's true.
Is
Well,
that
we're
too
very
much?
similar. We're very similar in that you sent me the text about the decommitment, Blake Stewart last week, and
On defense, yeah.
I'm so not even worried about that at this point because and I even responded to you this, and I think I responded exactly on something similar to this. Who's going to be coaching these players when they get there?
Yeah.
That to me is the bigger deal than the players. Maybe the talent, and I don't think the talent is close to what it was 5 years ago. I don't know one player on this team who would start for the 2019 team, not even to mention the championship teams.
Right.
But I, I there's got to be some coaching up, and it feels like there's none of that right now. And I know I'm overstating that, and I'm being overly dramatic, and that's fine. But when you're 3-4, over dramatic is okay, and over analyzing everything is okay. And I think that's what they've got to do. You know, I know we're going to focus on the offense here, but Dabo Swinney said yesterday they did a lot of self scout during the bye week, and they're looking at things. But those are the same things we've heard the last couple of years. Oh,
Right.
we had a great week of practice. I'm proud of the players. And I'm not blaming Dabo for saying that. He should not come out and say, "Oh my God, our guys suck." He's not going to say that.
Yeah.
But I've heard this talk the other bye week this year, right? We heard this after the slow start of the season. Oh, these
Mhm.
guys are practicing hard. Everything we need to do, they're doing on the practice field, and then come out and play just awful. Was that Syracuse when they did that before the bye week, right? So I don't know if that I need to hear that kind of stuff anymore. And I don't know that I even, there's talk of another decommitment coming. I'm just at this point where now let's just get to the game Saturday and see if there's actual improvement, and let's get to December and let's see who's still on the staff. And then maybe you can kind of get reinvested in the program because right now there's some disconnect.
Yeah, bye weeks lead to a lot of talk about, who should stay, who should go, who should be held accountable when your season is down, that is, right? And right
Right,
now they're
right.
below 500. They've yet to be above 500. It was interesting to hear Garrett Riley talk about, hey, we came out of the bye week, we went 2-1. Well, the level of competition, two of the three worst teams on the schedule to date, in Boston College and in North Carolina. So you should have won those games, right? Like, and frankly, I don't think SMU, much like I said about Georgia Tech in week 3, I don't think SMU looked as good as I expected them to look this year. Some of that is Kevin Jennings playing on a bad ankle, something that Cade Klubnik was not able to do. Clemson should have been able to find a way to win that game, if you ask me. It was close. They had their shot. I think the best thing that we saw in that game, outside of some really good receiver play, was that Christopher Vizzina is functional. And we did talk a little bit about that in the last episode. I do want to get into more of it in this episode as well. Shaky first quarter for him, but you could see, and maybe it should happen quickly enough that casual observers who are not coaches, guys like you and I, maybe we shouldn't be able to see him going through his reps, but maybe it stood out because that has been something that we've been looking for from the starter, Cade Klubnik, and we haven't seen as much of it from that. So to see Christopher Vizzina do that, go through those things, yeah, his game clock was still a little slow. His pocket awareness was not good. I mean, there's no other way to say it. Much like uh, Cade Klubnik, much like DJ Uyunglele before them. I would say Deshaun Watson had good pocket awareness. I would say that Trevor Lawrence had good pocket awareness. I would say that against top competition, Taj Boyd did not have that. So someone in the coaching role, unable to resolve that for Klubnik, unable to resolve it for Vizzina. Vizzina's young; it's his first start. That's fine. You have to be understanding. Didn't get the ball out as quickly, but he did seem to have a better decision tree, if you want to call that, a flow chart in his head of what to do and where to go with the ball. It needs a little more arm strength as well, so that gets kind of magnified. I mean, if you need a little of both of those, it kind of adds up against the quarterback's favor. Again, I've said it before. Vizzina was kind of taken as a project quarterback. I think for him to be at this point is very encouraging. Do I think he went out and earned next year's starting job? No, I don't. Do I think he disqualified himself from being in the competition for next year's starting job? I also do not think that. I think he looked like a work in progress. I think if Klubnik can't go this week, and I think most expectations are that he will go this week against Duke, but if Klubnik can't go, I think Vizzina may be a little bit improved from one game to the next, and we may see that from him as much as he gets to play during the rest of the year. It was an improvement in the Clemson passing game, despite the offensive line being very banged up.
A couple of things. I think he's earned more opportunities to play.
Yeah.
Has he earned he's the starter next year? No,
Right.
he hasn't. We've seen it one game. I mean, you go back to DJ. DJ looked great for 2 games.
Yeah.
And then when he was handed the job, he was awful. Okay. So I do think Vizzina has earned the right to play more. So how do you find that right? How do you find that time for him to play? I don't know. That's the coach's decisions. I don't think Vizzina is why they lost that game a week and a half ago.
I agree.
I think that Garrett Riley did not help him with the game plan. It felt like the game plan was here. This is Cade's game plan. Go run it, Christopher. They're not the same quarterback. Right. He is more of a stand in the pocket, look across the field, throw the ball quarterback than Cade is. He looked better throwing the ball deep. And I can't remember which throw it was, but I texted to you during the game, and you weren't the only person I texted this to. And yes, some other people now have started to get the crazy Daniel text. You're not just the only one. You guys should start a support group or something. But
what if we do it for like $4.99 a month and we just make it a group text?
I'm glad we don't put those texts on the podcast. But I text you, I can't remember which throw it was, but I said that's the best deep throw Clemson's had all year. And it was Christopher Vizzina. It was not Cade Klubnik.
Yeah.
So I think he's earned more chances, right? I think Garrett Riley has got to do a better job of helping him. And Dabo said that. He said we didn't help him. I think he's saying the offense coordinator didn't help him. The game plan did not look like it suited him. And you like the first quarter and a half, Bill, you're watching that game going, what are you trying to accomplish? Because what you're doing is not working. And I would tell you, if you're a Clemson fan, look, we're not going to break down film. You and I aren't. I'm not a football coach. I played football 1 year of high school. I got popped pretty hard. I didn't like it. I went and played basketball and tennis. So I didn't want any part of that. If you want to see those kinds of descriptions of why these things aren't working, go watch the Eric McLean breakdowns because they're outstanding.
Boy, howdy.
They are outstanding.
He's really come along in that area.
The biggest problem to me with the offense, there's 2 problems, is I don't think the game plan works. I don't think the scheme fits the talents. That's the coaching part of it. And the offensive line, Bill, was awful a week and a half ago.
Connect with us on social media. That's at Clemson Kickoff. Whether you're on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, or Facebook, you'll find us there.
Look, Blake Miller is a 4th-year starter and gets beat on the edge and just stands there and lets Vizzina just get obliterated.
Yeah.
And if Vizzina wasn't such a big dude, he probably fumbles the ball. Now, the next throw, he makes a beautiful throw on 4th down to Tristan Smith for the touchdown. But that is awful. That Blake Miller has not gotten any better through his 4 years at Clemson. that he's letting that happen. The interior of the offensive line, my goodness. I mean, I'm telling you, go watch these Eric McLean breakdowns. It is embarrassing, some of the plays by the interior of the offensive line. And I thought they were pretty good at center last year. Well, Linthicum has regressed this year. He's not been good. And then the
Not
running
alone
game,
in that regard.
well, that's true. And then the
Right.
running game is laughably bad. I just, and look, I don't put that on Adam Randall. You can't be a running back and not have any holes.
Yeah.
You know what you got to be? You've got to be an unbelievable generational talent to run behind a bad offensive line and make it work. And we've
Travis
seen
Etienne.
that.
Yeah.
Travis Etienne. But even that line isn't as bad as this line.
Right.
Travis Etienne's line got worse through his 4 years, but it wasn't close to as bad as this offensive line. So I feel like, you know, I like Christopher Vizzina, what I saw, and I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
I liked what I saw from him standing in the pocket, throwing the ball, looking across the field, finding open guys. The throws to TJ Moore were nice. I mean, now TJ Moore made a great catch on the one. That's still a nice throw. But they've got to help him. And that means Garrett Riley's got to help him. And I don't, again, whatever coaching changes that come, we'll talk about those when they come. But they can't have the same game plan this Saturday if he's the quarterback that they had this past Saturday.
Right.
Because they're going to get somebody hurt if you keep doing that.
Yeah. No, and the other thing I really liked is he tended to hit receivers in stride. He tended to lead his receivers. How many times have you and I talked about that or texted each other about, like, I mentioned Bentoncourt's touchdown against North Carolina. He had to come back several yards to be able to get that ball. I mean, that ball should have been several yards ahead of where it was if it was going to hit him in stride.
Well, he's just lucky the DB fell down, right? Yeah.
Bingo. Yeah. Even Wesco against SMU with the drop, like, it seemed to me like he slowed to try to catch that ball and was like, oh, wait, I didn't have to slow for this ball. And
right.
A lot of things could go into that. Maybe I'm overthinking it, that it's a Klubnik versus Vizzina thing. But if that was habitual from him, it would not surprise me. The other thing I want to say about Vizzina is, if you're going to throw those screen passes and try to stretch a defense wide, you might want to bring the receivers in a couple yards, because he doesn't have that same arm strength. He doesn't have that same, I've been doing this for 3 years where it's, get the snap, turn, throw. Like, he's not going to be as efficient and quick at getting the ball out. So between those two things, you might want to, I'm not saying do tunnel screens that close in, but bring it in a little bit, maybe. I don't know. Again, we're not coaches, but anything you can do to get the ball to the receiver quicker somehow, some way. You can't take the screen out of this offense. And there were a couple balls that I thought were a little bit in jeopardy. And, against another, it depends who your matchups are going to be. I bet Florida State in a week and a half from now has quicker DBs than Duke. Louisville's got some speed on defense. I don't know what Duke's got, admittedly. This is not a specific Duke preview. This is about what Clemson needs to do this next week and the next couple of games. Help things accelerate however you can and get the ball out. You mentioned Randall. He's not a natural running back, right? So here's a project on the fly. Like, Vizzina has been cooking for this for a couple of years. This is Randall's, first full season of doing this. And so you're not going to get that same kind of, hey, let me cut back. There's nothing here. You're not going to have that same kind of vision. I call it pocket awareness with Vizzina. Really, it's behind the line of scrimmage awareness, both for him and for Randall. So you've got to account for that. And when your offensive line is struggling, partly because of injury, partly because of regression, maybe, who knows where that balance is on what's causing this. Maybe it's a deletion of Marcus Tate, who I believe is still on injured reserve with Philly, and it says something that they're willing to spend a spot on that guy straight out of college and not really able to play yet, but they see something in him that they want to hang on to. So maybe we have, all those things factored together. That's going to hurt everything. You and I talk about that, all the time. If you can make the offensive line better, you make your entire offense better. Your offensive attack gets better. It's half the guys on the field, just about. So we'll see where that goes. I don't pretend to know what the technique ought to be, what the calls ought to be, what the assignments ought to be. I like hat on a hat. I mean, a couple of years ago when they had the two inexplicable losses to Miami with a freshman quarterback, to NC State with an inferior team, to Clemson. What did they do the next week against Notre Dame, where I said they had no chance? Well, out of nowhere, they did a lot more hat on a hat, man blocking. They dropped a lot of the pull. They dropped a lot of the zone. Not entirely, but you saw more. Hey, let's surge forward. Let's do more of this. And maybe there's a redo there, right? Maybe you bring that approach back somehow, some way. In that it worked. You've got a different offensive coordinator, a different scheme, right? But I don't know. I will also say this: the bright spot is the receivers. Um, those guys did a nice job with a backup quarterback, a guy they're not used to dealing with, and made it work. And so, like you said, if the game plan changes, if they can get a little more, now they've got a feel of what it's like to go up against an opponent outside and find out, all right, look, yeah, here are some things we can try. Here are some things that maybe we don't do as much of or do it at all. So, really eager to see what can happen. It's homecoming. You should be able to beat your homecoming opponent. I think, with the timing of homecoming in the season, it kind of hit at one of the worst stretches in the schedule. We knew Duke would be better this year. Florida State has not played up to potential, but they didn't look like a team in the preseason that you wanted to turn into your homecoming opponent. Same with Louisville. You lost to them last year. You don't want to do that with them. So it kind of falls to Duke. You want to do it before it gets too cold. You don't want to do it when it's too hot, what have you. It's going to be a challenge, and Duke gets a little motivation out of being the homecoming opponent, I'm sure.
I would think so. And I think you mentioned that running game against Notre Dame. It feels like that's the best running game they've had in a couple of years, right? I mean,
I think so.
Maffa went crazy in that game, and we got to see Maffa's talents on full display that day. But look, I just think I almost, Bill, to the point I would rather see Vizzina play, and let's see what he is for the next 5 weeks,
To
right?
invest in the future potentially,
Yeah,
or find out if you can.
right. And look, if you want to put Cade on the shelf and get him to get ready for the NFL draft, that's not going to hurt my feelings any. And I'm not talking about just Cade. I'm not picking on Cade. I'm the same way with all the young guys. I want to see those young guys. I want to see
Yeah.
more of Gideon Davidson. I want to see the young guys on defense.
Be sure to subscribe at youtube.com/Clemson Kickoff. It's free. It's the best place to catch all our episodes, and it's the best place for you to comment with your reactions.
That's where I am with this team right now. This is a lost season. And I know Dabo's not going to talk that way.
Right.
And he was great yesterday. And if you heard him say, let's go have our best November, if you're a Clemson fan, that fires you up because you believe in that guy. And I understand that. But I also want this program to get back to, I don't think it will ever win 2 national titles in 3 years again. That's never going to happen again. But I want it to get back to, winning 10, 11 games every year and not having these just inexplicable games like they had against Syracuse. SMU turns around and loses to Wake, right? After they dominated Clemson. And I don't know it's a 1-score game in the fourth quarter, but that was a dominant performance by SMU. They controlled that game from start to finish. So if we got to see the younger guys, let's do it and see what they can be for the next month.
Well, that's a nice transition, I think, because I don't think there's too much to talk about with the offense, position by position. I think most people can see a little more plainly than we did talk more about the defense because there are a lot more variables, I think, going there. Do you think Dabo and the coaches are trying to put a number on the ledger, 8-win, 9-win season? Are they really worried about that? And should they be? It seems to me, look, football's about winning, okay? And I remember,
Yes.
friend of mine grew up in the Dallas area. I won't mention by name, but when the Cowboys were really, really bad, and I used to be a Cowboys fan, and for various reasons, I've jumped off that ship. But I was like, hey, I'd like to see them tank. I'd like to see them get yet another high draft pick and do something with it. And he said to me, at some point they got to learn how to win. So I understand Dabo Sweeney wanting to, not make these just minor league games, not just make these, hey, let's develop
The
Tristan Smith.
JV, right?
Yeah, yeah. Let's not develop Tristan Smith in case he gets a JUCO year or because he deserved it. Let's not develop Gideon Davidson just for the sake of doing it or David Easy-Mumi. On and on and on, right? Don't just throw Ronan O'Connell in there to the Wolves if he's not ready. And you can ruin a guy by playing him too soon. So I
Yes,
get it. There's a lot to think about. But I do agree with you. I do want to see more Vizzina. I do want to see more of the younger running backs who will be back next year. I do want to see more Tyler Brown. Like he's been out there a good bit. I'd like to see him get more targets. Uh, Bentoncourt at tight end, I'd like to see him
absolutely.
continue getting good reps. And on the defensive side of the ball as well, we could go down a long list of names over on that side of the ball. Again, you don't want to fry somebody by putting them in there too soon. But yeah, I would like to see a lot more of that. I'd like to see stronger rotations. And if that leads to fewer wins, look, we're already ahead of Florida State's 2-10 season. We don't have to worry about that. Somebody's been
Right.
worse very recently.
Well, and I get like he's not. I get Dabo's job is to win the Duke game.
Right.
I understand that, and he's going to do whatever he can to win the Duke game, and the next one after that, and the next one after that. And Bill, that's how you have to be as a program, right?
Yep.
We've seen Clemson be a top 10 team, and the coach at the time's talking about winning national title and winning the ACC title, and they get obliterated in the opener in Atlanta. And luckily, that was his last half of a season as a head coach. We don't have to talk about that anymore. You don't want me to get started on that. So you've got to be a day-to-day, hour-to-hour, play-to-play organization. That's how you have to do it. That's what Nick Saban did. That's what Kirby Smart does. That's what Dabo Sweeney has done. So I get that. But I also think you can't sacrifice the future for these 4 games. You can't say, oh, well, Cade's going to get 100% of the snaps, and then we still don't know what Christopher Vizzina is in the spring after 1 game.
Right.
So maybe you're not going to do Spurrier and trade them out by play, right? You don't want to do that.
Or Malzahn playing 3.
Yeah, I do want to. Yeah, 3 on 1 play. I do want to see, maybe Vizzina gets a series a half or 2 series a half, or if Cade, let's say Cade starts Saturday and he doesn't start well, boom, get him out like you would any other position.
Right.
So, and I'm not picking on Cade. It's just quarterback is the position that gets the most attention. Same thing with Adam Randall. If he looks uncertain behind the offensive line, then let one of the other guys try. Right.
Yep.
Yes, absolutely. If your defensive end doesn't get the job done, trade them out. If your cornerback or your safety gets beat on a bad bust again, get them out of there. And
right.
So I think that's more of what I'm saying than let's go play a bunch of JV guys and let's don't care if we win the game. Yes, I'm going to care if they win the game Saturday, but I do want to see more. I don't want to in the spring go, well, we don't know what we've got in Christopher Vizzina because he hasn't played.
No, and it's not just about the spring. It's about portal season at this point because you've got 2 decommits, a third rumored, and I believe they're all on the defensive side of the ball. Correct me if I'm wrong about that. You got to know at this point, all right, do you want a fallback guy? Like, can you find a fallback target like Trenton Simpson was, who can be tremendous? Can you find a fallback target like Travis Etienne, who was tremendous? Right. Or should you go to the portal? Whether you want to go after an FCS school, whether you want to go after a group of 5 or 6 or however many they have right now, whatever the Pac-12 identifies as, find your guys. Like, you're not going to pull guys from the SEC most likely, right? Like,
unless their coach gets fired, right?
Well, if their coach gets fired, that's another thing. But they're probably going to stay in those circles, right? Like, I always think about what was the name of the show on Netflix? Last Chance U. And there was a guy in there in the guidance counselor's office, and the guidance counselor said, "Hey, so and so here is from, I forget, McNeese or someplace like that," and the guy just like stone face goes, "Nope, SEC only." I'm only going to the SEC. There are guys who are going to think that way. There are going to be agents who are going to think that way. They're going to be chasing big payouts. I don't think Dabo Swinney is ready to charge to the front of the payout line. So, they're going to have to shop wisely and find the diamonds in the rough. And they are out there because those stories, you hear about a new guy every week who came up that way and made it happen.
Absolutely.
We could go on and on and on about that, but we are close to time, and I know you've got something lined up that you've got to get running to as well.
Real quick, we will have time to go on and on and on about that when the season's over.
Yeah, exactly, and maybe we'll wedge it into a game week. Who knows? Maybe that's a good Furman week topic if we feel good about not having to discuss matchups against Furman. We'll see how that goes. So,
fingers crossed.
Yeah. We're coming at you a little late this week. Sorry we missed the Sunday night that we've been trying to post on this year. And a lot of y'all seem to be responding to that well. So that's still our plan A every week. Just life gets in the way sometimes. But we will be back at you as soon as we can after the Duke game, one way or another, win or lose Clemson. Until then, I'm Bill Zimmerman.
I'm Daniel Shirley. Go Tigers.